Hello, Noble Knitter. It's Nancy Queen, and today I have a big surprise for you. I'm going to show you how to make a 1-hour baby blanket. This really soft, super plush blanket was made in just 1 hour using Premier's snow cone yarn. The color names are amazing. They're named after snow cones, so I picked my favorite snow cone flavor, which is blue raspberry, and that's the one I used to make the baby blanket. I used 2 skeins and a pair of size 50 knitting needles. That's why it was knitted up in just an hour. It's a great beginner project. It's really easy and fun to make, and I know you're going to love it. I've also included instructions to make this project in a medium and large size. The medium takes about 3 to 4 hours and the large takes about 5 to 6 hours. So let's dive right in. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click the bell to get notified every time I post. To knit my blanket, I used a pair of size 50 knitting needles, a pair of scissors, and 2 skeins of Premier snow cone yarn. I was gifted this yarn from Premier, and I will provide links to the materials in the description below, as well as the number of skeins you'll need if you're going to make the medium or large size. Here are the sizes of each blanket, as well as how many skeins you're going to need for each size. So choose which size you're going to make, and let's get going. I'm going to leave about a 6 to 8 inch tail and then make a slip knot. And I make my slip knot by making 2 loops and putting 1 loop inside of the other and pulling up. Now I'm going to tighten that up and I'm going to put it on my needle. I'm going to tighten it up a little bit more, but I'm also going to make sure that it can still glide on my needle. Now I'm going to do a loop cast on, so I'm just going to turn my finger back like a gun and make a loop and put it on the needle. Now for my blanket, the size small, I'm going to be casting on 18, but just for this sample swatch, I'm only casting on 9 stitches. And you want to make sure that you're getting those stitches cast on up on the shaft of the needle, not the tip. So you got to make sure they're all up there and that they can move back and forth along the needle so that my cast on isn't too tight. After casting on, I'll move my needle back to my left hand and start row 1. So I'm going to insert the needle into the first stitch, into the back of the first stitch. And then I'm going to wrap my yarn counterclockwise around the needle and pull up that first stitch. Now, it looks like I'm struggling a little here, and I am, only because these needles are big and that first row is just a loop cast on. It's the best cast on for this type of yarn. And so it's a little bit finicky, but as you start working the rows, they get much, much easier. Let's do another one. I'm going to go into the stitch, then wrap the yarn around that back needle counterclockwise, bring up this new stitch and slide the old stitch off the needle. Now I want to make sure that I get each one of those stitches up onto the white part of the needle so that they're the proper size. If you're knitting down on that tip, your stitches will not be big enough. And then I'll just keep knitting all of these stitches across the row. For row 2, I'm going to be purling, so I'm going to go into the front of the stitch, wrap the yarn counterclockwise around the needle, and then bring it up and slide the old stitch off the needle. I'll do that again. I'm going to come into the stitch, from back to front, wrap the yarn counterclockwise around the needle, bring up the new stitch, and slide the old stitch off. So your first row is knit and your second row is purl. And like I said, these first 2 rows are a little bit of a struggle, but once you get the first 2 rows down, the blanket knits much, much easier because you've established the pattern and you're knitting the stitches not on the cast on row, and they're the right size of the needle. So should be much easier from here on out. And we're just going to work this purl stitch all the way across the row. if you're making the small blanket, when you're about halfway through, you're going to be out of yarn. So make sure you have at least a 6 to 8 inch tail on this before when you add the new skein. Don't get down to like 1 inch or 2 inches. You need something to be able to weave in, or your blanket will come unraveled. So I have my tail, and it just happens to be here at the end. So what I do is I just loop my new yarn on it like that, and then I go and work my next stitch. I just drop the old yarn and pick up the new yarn and start knitting. Now I always, especially with a yarn like this, I always like to knit a few stitches and then stop and tie the old tail and new tail together, just because I'm not going to weave them in yet, and I am going to take out this knot, but what that does is it keeps the tension when I work other rows, so that I don't have a wonky section when I hit that area. And when you work on it, you'll know what I mean. You'll feel if you don't tighten it up right there, you'll feel the stitches loosen and get kind of holy. So that's what I do until I get to the end of my project, and then I go back and I weave in those yarn ends, and I'll show you in a few minutes how to do that. When your blanket reaches the desired length, mine is 25 inches, it's time to bind off. So you're going to knit the first stitch, then you're going to knit the second stitch, and you're going to take the first stitch up and over that second stitch. And that's one stitch bound off or cast off. Now if you were on the purl side, you would do the exact same thing in purl, but I'm on the knit side, so I'm going to do a knitted bind off. So I'll knit the next stitch, and then I'll take that first stitch up and over, and I'll just keep repeating this all the way across the row until there's only one stitch left on my needle. When I'm down to the last stitch on my needle, I'm going to cut the yarn, leaving a 6 to 8 inch tail, and then I'm going to take the needle out of that last loop, and I'll make the loop a little bit bigger so I can fit the yarn through, and I'll just pull it through that loop and tighten it up a little bit. And now my blanket is bound off. So next step, we're going to weave in the yarn ends. You don't need any special tools to weave in the yarn ends. Just turn your blanket over to the back side, and using your fingers, you're going to weave the tail through the stitches, and don't pull it too tight. Just kind of go with the tension of the stitches, and I just go along and weave it along the stitches so that it's really in there and not going to come loose. Now, because this is a chenille type yarn, you can use a material called fray check, and you just put a little bit on the end, you allow it to dry, and then you weave it the rest of the way into your project, and it should keep it really good. I'll put a link below for this product. Now I want to see you in more videos, so check this link above to see what I would like you to watch next, and check the link below to see what YouTube wants you to watch next. I'll see you in the next video.